Hi, Pastor Steve here in beautiful Visalia, California. We are experiencing just an absolutely gorgeous day. I hope it is nice weather wherever you are, and I hope it's nice internally, emotionally, and spiritually wherever you happen to be as you watch this episode of Happy Thoughts. We're talking about the church, and we have talked about. I talked about last week some of the influences and struggles that go along with a denomination and with a local church, and I weighed in a little bit on the difficulty of ego in leadership, causing the decline of denominationalism, bad decisions to be made, taking our eye off the prize, those kind of things. I'll talk a little bit further into that strain of thought this week. In the local church, there is always a dichotomy between wanting the church to be successful, and that means being able to keep their building and grounds up. That means being able to pay their staff. That means being able to support the missions that they want to, right? Financial health and health, health in the number of people who attend worship or who participate in other programs. There's that part of church which is has a distinct emphasis in the materials that are available to local pastors, and much of it is again business oriented. So the ideas that drive that type of success, numbers and money, are to be as non-threatening as possible, to try to put on a good show, to be inoffensive, and to uh, for lack of better words, to kind of water down the gospel a little bit so it wouldn't offend anybody, because offended people don't come to church and they sure don't give to the church. There are a plethora of difficulties along those ways. In my own life, as a practicing Christian and as a pastor, I have seen myself slowly come to understand that many of the things that I have done as a pastor along the way, and many of the things that I accepted as good teachings about how to grow a church and about success in the church, have proven themselves to be effective in growing churches, but almost counter, or certainly leading to a different place than my own personal calling. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because I think it sheds some light on what might be coming in the future for Christianity in our hyper success oriented society. So the local church in its current structure, not only in denominations but across the board, is really struggling to maintain its place in society. There is a decrease in the number of people who attend church, the number of people who give to church, and that's across the board. It even happens in mega churches. There's some up and down, but the trend is generally down. That scares a lot of people, and they feel like um, uh, it's a sign that our society is going to hell. My own view on it is, what it is a sign that the church, in its pursuit of ever more glory, kind of a Super Bowl winning mindset for the local church at all levels, right? We all know we have to grow our churches. We all want to be successful. We all count our worth as pastors and lay people in churches also by whether we can brag about our church growing and doing things, and etc. I think people are abandoning the church because you don't really need the church for uh, that way of being. And churches necessarily avoid some of the hard work of deep discipleship in the pursuit of glory and size and monetary rewards. So I think the future of the local church, maybe 100 years down the road, if the trends continue, will be that it will still exist, but it will exist in a form, I hope, that it is really dedicated less to success in terms of worldly acclaim and numbers and finance, and dedicated more to the things that Jesus did, the deep discipleship that Jesus did with his um, followers, with the 12 and the hangers on the outside of those 12. I'm hopeful that the church is being purified in that way. That the idea of pastors flying Lear jets or driving Lexuses and Mercedes and doing those kind of things, that will pass soon enough, and the church will concern itself with the the thing that makes the church worth people worth their time and worth their energy. And for me, again, the phrase that recurs to me over and over is deep discipling. And what that involves is not popular. Deep discipling means walking with people as they confront their own difficulties in life. That goes under the category of what has happened to them, right? What harm has come to them by the relationship with other people. And it also involves what harm have we done, have people done to others out of our situations. It involves the seeking of genuine forgiveness, and genuine forgiveness comes really only, I guess, except for in special circumstances, comes only from giving genuine forgiveness. So it involves the heart work and hard work of learning how do you actually forgive somebody, and then learning, once you learn to do that and forgiveness opens up inside of you, how do you learn to live as a forgiven person? How do you learn to actually step into the being the new creation that Christ promises? Those things are messy and difficult, and they come along slowly, and they cause people to work much harder than, if truth be told, most people want to work on their personal lives or on the state of their soul. But when we look at the biblical record of the earliest church, it was devoted to those things, to a wholesale change in people, and to the process by which that change happened. And Jesus had only 12, and in his little church of 12, one of them dropped out at the last minute. That's 11, and you wouldn't give a nickel for any of them, while Jesus was their pastor, for their ability to grow or to understand what was going on. But in the iteration of the first church after the resurrection, what we see is people who have, over a very long period with Jesus, found themselves changed deeply and genuinely inside, going out and constructing local churches so that they provided fellowship and welcoming, but they also provided really in-depth opportunities to experience God and to change because of that experience. So in this series on the church, I'm giving myself permission to kind of think out loud about what the church should be, what the church could be, and what the church is. The local church is a beautiful place for me. I've always found my home here, even in very hard times. And if you're a pastor, you're going to have very hard times. I have just absolutely a fervent love for the local church, because the church has always served one of its primary purposes in my life, and that is to be a home away from home, and a place where I can hear the gospel proclaimed, and a place where grace is abundant enough to cover me even in graceless periods of my life. I'll never give up my love of the local church for that. But I am beginning to redefine what I think of as success, and how I judge myself, and how I judge Christianity in general. I find myself less enamored of the idea that growing a church is the number one thing that needs to be happened, because I've grown churches, and I've watched closely as other churches around grow, and I've noted that very frequently, the vast majority of the time, there has to be a lessening of the impact of the ministry in order to gain growth and to increase the budget and do those kind of things. It seems to me an enterprise that is leaving people empty, and so people are leaving the church because, truthfully, they're not fed there on any deep levels. So you can go to a burgeoning church with a prophet or whatever they want to call themselves, and everything's fancy and everything's happy, and there's lots of clapping, and be assured that God wants you to succeed the way you want to succeed, all those kind of things. But the hardcore truth is, if you buy into that form of Christianity that actually does produce growth in churches, if you're honest, it won't take very long before you understand the church is talking about worldly values of growth and success and acclaim. And you can attend a church like that for a very long time and never have your heart changed, never come to peace with those who are your enemies, never come face to face with God and to wrestle with God and sort things out. So I think the future of the church, I hope the future of the church, the local church, as people continue to abandon an institution in which shallowness and being co-opted by the values of the world begins to tell its tale, right? As that dilemma of the slow leaving of the institutional church continues, I hope and pray that local churches will have it in mind that it will actually be true that a local church dedicated to depth of experience with Jesus, dedicated to the hard part of Christianity, the forgiveness stuff, giving forgiveness, receiving forgiveness, a church dedicated to being availing itself in its ministries and in its teachings so that people can learn how the transformation process goes. I think those churches will gain, if not in numbers in the way that we understand that now, they will gain in depth of discipleship and in fervor and in genuine excitement and love for what they're doing. But it will take some time. It takes time to develop church ministry that actually helps people grind away and change in their hearts and really open up to a genuine relationship with the living God. It takes time and dedication, and it takes being willing to talk about the unpleasant things in life instead of patting people on the back and patting them on the head and telling them Jesus wants you to have more money too. Um, it takes time to disciple deeply, but in time, because there are churches, actually a growing number of churches that are content to pursue that deep discipleship, I think we'll see a change in the church, in the form of Christianity, to a place where people are a little bit nervous about deciding to go to church because they know that going to church, the expectation will be not that they just show up to be counted and put a check in the plate, but that they show up and they get honest and they be willing to bare their soul and to tell their truth, and then to invite the work of the Holy Spirit to happen. I'm kind of an eternal optimist, again, because I love the church in its broken forms and in its better forms. But I do think that the future of Christianity comes in deep discipleship, in changing the models that we've used, in changing the emphasis on worldly success, and really having the wherewithal of the faith to dig in and say, this is a place where if you want your life changed, really from the inside out, if you want the whole ball of wax to be freshened up and changed and lightened by your experience of God, this is a place to do that. It's a long, slow, difficult road, but it's more than worth the effort to put into it. We are trying to become that here in Visalia, right? I keep trying to think of ways to let people know what kind of church we are. And we are just a deep discipling church with the expectation of vulnerability and earnestness and honesty in lay people's part. And we choose the ministries that we do because we know that they've had a profound impact in my life and in staff life and other people's life. And we shy away from the whole gospel of prosperity or the shiny, bright, smiley Christian thing because we're looking for something deeper and more authentic. So I hope that the church will in the future continue to go deeper and make a more profound impact in people's lives, even if it's less people. I think the impact will cause changes that are much greater than the church is able to create right now with its emphasis on worldly success. I'll be back next week. One more time, we'll finish out the series on the church next time. I'll take a closer look at what should be happening in church, what should be happening in our hearts and in our minds, and how that actually transpires. I hope you're enjoying these happy thoughts, and I certainly am enjoying giving them to you. So again, hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll talk to you again next week. Thank you.